Are you?
Hi, everyone. I'm Lance Bohrnell. This is Jonathan Meyer. We're going to be presenting today on Hawksearch reports. You might recognize me from Basecamp. I used my Basecamp photo. I'm a scuba diver. I'm a senior project manager with Hawksearch. I've been with the Hawksearch team about 4 years. I help on the implementation side of things, so that's kind of my background and where I come from.
And I'm Jonathan Meyer. You guys might recall me from earlier in this morning. So yes, sales engineer. Looking forward to having this conversation with Lance today about reporting for you guys.
Here's an agenda of what we're going to be covering today. And before we jump into this, just wanted to take a quick poll by a show of hands. How many people recognize the importance of reviewing your site search metrics? All right, it's okay. Everybody's hand should go up for that first one. The second question then is, by a show of hands, how many people are actively reviewing site search metrics and taking action on it? All right. And for those that aren't, right, hopefully that you'll be inspired by this presentation today with some takeaways. We're going to start off with just a quick 1.5 minute video here about search.
Hello, just after semi-skimmed milk.
Your search for semi-skimmed milk returned 0 results.
We don't sell milk.
Your search for milk returned 52,256 results. Your top hit, milk of magnesia.
No,
Milk floats of yesteryear.
no.
This milk-themed family wall planner.
No, sorry, I'm just looking for, normal milk.
Couldn't find what you were looking for.
That's what I'm saying. I couldn't find it, so I'm asking you if you could...
Advanced search.
All right, let's do this. Keyword, now, go.
Yeah, okay. Milk.
Please narrow your search by using one of the following filters. Kayaks, packet 12, self-cleaning, breakfast and condiment.
That one. Breakfast.
One result.
Milk, skimmed semi.
Semi-skimmed milk. That's what I first asked you for.
It's milk skimmed semi.
All right. Just a fun video. Obviously, everybody realizes the importance of having a good search on your site. And in conjunction with that is reporting data, right? To look at that reporting data and gain some insight to make sure your customers can find what they're looking for. So some of these main reasons why you want to review your reporting data is to verify that your search results are delivering as expected. And again, we're going to get into some of the reports that are in Hawksearch later on. But right, what are those top things that they're looking for and cannot find at the first glance? And again, with those top search terms, what's coming back in those search terms? What keywords are converting, as well as what keywords aren't converting? And again, with all that, right, what are some action items you can take on this?
So the main point that you can look to take away from your reporting is going to be customer insight. What are your customers actually doing? We've said it a couple of different times now. Search expresses intent. It lets your visitors know, or it lets you know what your site visitors are actually looking for. So looking at your reporting, you can gain that insight into what they're actually looking for. That also has some knock-on effects beyond just understanding, hey, these are what customers are coming to my site looking for. You can understand ways to improve your content, SEO, and just the general user experience. We've also got 2 points here listed with GA, meaning for Google Analytics. We're going to get into more of the Google Analytics integration and what you can do with Hawksearch and that in a second. But we want to call attention to some insights that you can gain from that, such as goals, events, and conversions. You can segment your reports by conversions, which also helps you gain that additional insight to your customer intent. And of course, everyone's favorite buzzword, KPIs. Make sure that you have the clearly defined key performance indicators that are represented by your goals in Google Analytics.
Again, reviewing your reporting data can help you optimize site content. Keywords that people are searching for on your site, you want to make sure that that's incorporated in your SEO and PPC campaigns. It may even want to, review, do it best, talked about actually changing an item name to better, better match those keywords that people were searching for and looking for those items. In addition to that, right, a lot of these reports too are search tuning opportunities. We'll talk about that as well, but right, a couple of the common ones that we see are synonyms and keyword replacements.
So then we also want to help you identify your merchandising opportunities. It's another area that reporting can help gain you that advantage over people who are not paying attention to reporting. So we saw those hands that went down earlier. Those are people that need to be able to pay more attention to the reporting. But think about all your competitors in your space that are probably doing the same thing. They have access to all this reporting, and they're not taking advantage of it. By being able to take advantage of this reporting and being one of those active participants of this knowledge and gaining it, you can identify other areas such as banners, pinning, boost and bury, and your product spotlighting, all those fun merchandising features that are in Hawksearch that you can then leverage to help either increase conversions, increase click-throughs, whatever your goals might be for your business.
Improve your visitor's experience. Again, in that video, right, he was searching for semi-skimmed milk and couldn't find what he's looking for, right? You want to make sure at the end of the day that the search terms users are putting in your site, that they're getting the right results back. You also want to make it easy to refine searches with facets. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. Obviously, the goal too is, right, one of the goals is to prevent users from bouncing. If the right items are coming back, they're not going to leave and go somewhere else. And also, you want to prevent someone having to do a second search for that same type of item.
And last but not least, of course, everyone here would like to increase conversions. So obviously that is going to be one of the other big bullet points to take away from what reporting can help you accomplish and the reason why you want to spend some time going through these different reports. And we'll cover, obviously, as we go through these reports, the different ways that you can take that knowledge to help improve your conversions.
So lay the groundwork. Just want to start by saying the Hawksearch reports aren't meant to replace Google Analytics, right? It's meant to be used in conjunction with Google Analytics. So you want to make sure that Google Analytics is tracking search on your site, and we'll show you how to do that here in the next slide. But by combining both of these, right, it'll just give you more insight. And then coming in the second quarter of this year, we're going to have a guide for marketers as well that will help with this. So prepping for Google Analytics, this is a takeaway that you can, one of the takeaways for today from our presentation is to make sure that Google Analytics, you're tracking site search. And here are the steps to do that, right? If you go home or whenever, log into Google Analytics, right, and follow those steps, navigate to the admin tab, click View Settings, go to the bottom, and you want to make sure that's on. If it's not, just click it and turn it on. And the second piece that goes along with that then is the query parameter. So after you turn it on, this box will pop up, and everyone's query parameter is going to be different. Typically, it's keyword. But with that being said, every site is different. And if you don't know what your query parameter is, here's just kind of an example of how to find it. If you go to your site and do a search, in this example, the search term there is SEO. That's the resulting URL. With that question mark, S equals SEO is the parameter, and the query parameter in that example is S. So want to make sure that's on, and Google Analytics is tracking your site search. With that being said, we sometimes get questions then about why does data look different in Google Analytics versus what we see in the Hawksearch reports. And there's a lot of different reasons, but one of the things that we want to call out is you want to make sure that you're filtering out your internal traffic. Your internal users are going to search differently than your site search users. Typically, what we see with internal users, they know SKUs and go straight to an item, where users might know that, but they might be searching typically more on a keyword. On this screenshot, you can see how to do this in Hawksearch. If you go to Admin, Block IP Search Crawlers, and you'll see a couple IPs in there. We also put our own Hawksearch IP addresses in there to filter out our traffic so we're not skewing your reporting data. So you'll see those in there. Don't delete them because that's us. But go ahead and add your own office IPs as well to filter out that internal traffic. And that is a small thing that makes a big difference when it comes to looking at the data. And then just a couple other reasons too, sometimes why the data might be different between the two. With Google Analytics, it's a JavaScript tag that fires, whereas Hawksearch is server-side. And because of those differences, sometimes, right, there's connectivity issues that happen. the load of the page, right? But sometimes discrepancies might happen on that page load that just cause the data to be different between the two. Within Google Analytics, categories need to be configured as well. And then lastly, the API request to Hawksearch. When a search is made, that API was made to Hawk, that's different than the page load in Google Analytics. And again, sometimes there's just discrepancies that might cause that data to be different. I know they're going to send out these PowerPoints to everybody as well. So I also included a link in here too to a site that just has some more information about understanding that. And then one final point here, the reporting is only as good as the tracking that is sent. On the implementations, I try to work with all the clients to make sure before we go live that conversion tracking and click tracking are two reports in Hawksearch that require a little snippet of code to go on your site. If your site doesn't have that snippet of code, your reports are going to be empty for these two reports. So that's another takeaway I'd say for today. Log into your Workbench, look at the conversion tracking and click tracking. If you have no data in there, that's something that we can help you take an action item with. Your web team will need to add that snippet of code, and again, we can help point them in the right direction of what needs to be done. But you want to make sure that that snippet of code is in place so that you have data to review. All right, so with that being said, we're going to jump into some of the reports within Hawksearch. Hawksearch has 19 core reports. And as we kind of prepared for today, right, we realized that sometimes it just takes seeing them in action to understand how to truly apply them. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the key reports. And you've already heard about some of those today. We're going to talk through some of the reports, what's in there, and then just give some examples of what action items that can be done based on that data. And again, everyone's use case is different, but we can talk through some examples to give you ideas. So the first report we're going to talk about is the top 250 keyword searches. This is one of the main reports that we, clients use, and we also reference as well. And those, it's just that. It's those keywords that people are searching on. And I want to call out all of our reports. At the top of the report, we have a filter. So you can kind of filter the reporting data. The one that we use the most is the date range. There are some predefined date ranges in that drop-down menu. There's also the ability to create a custom date range. So you can create your own start date and end date to look at data from a certain time frame. In this example, we're looking at data from the last 90 days. One other item I want to call out too, right? We can obviously see the data on the screen. We also have a button you can click to export that data. So if you change the date range, if you click refresh, you'll see the data refreshed on the page. If you click export, it'll put that data for that time frame into an Excel file you can download and then slice and dice however you want. So with the report itself, right, you see the top keywords that users are searching on. And we also provide the count for the number of times it was searched within that date range. Also worth noting, these keywords are clickable. So if you were to click on hiking shoes, it's going to take you to the Hawksearch preview with that keyword entered, and you can see the results of what your users see when they search the term hiking shoes. And then again, you could hit back on your browser and click jacket, and again, it'll take you to the Hawk preview with jacket in there, and you can see the results that users see when they search on that keyword. So that's helpful, and just helpful to know and be aware of as well if you didn't. So with this report, what do, right? The first thing is just to determine, based on those top keywords that people are, what they're searching on, because again, when they're putting that keyword in, they're telling you exactly what they're trying to find. So, right, based on that and your knowledge of your data and what you have on your site, are those results that are coming back the right results for what their intention is? If yes, that's fantastic. If not, and this is where search tuning comes in, and that's been mentioned throughout the different presentations today. And the search tuning exercise is something we do with all of our clients too prior to going live. And again, what we do is we take these top keywords and ask users, put them in the site, score them based on how they're coming back. And by looking at it kind of as an aggregate, you can determine if there's something at the field level that needs to be adjusted, or maybe it's just a one-off scenario that needs to be addressed with the boost and bury. Obviously, we want to avoid, pages not found or items not found, especially if it's bringing back results, but maybe not the right results. Avoid, obviously, items that are incorrect. And I already mentioned this, but right, some of those top keyword searches, you want to make sure that those are included in your pay-per-click and SEO campaigns. So the action items for this report, search tuning, like I said, sometimes you might realize that items aren't coming back, and it might be because a field isn't being queried, right? You've got the data in there, and it's being passed to Hawksearch, but if that field's not being queried, it's not going to find that match. Sometimes there's maybe too many fields being queried, and fields might need to be turned off. Sometimes you might put a boost on a field, right? There's all different types of use cases. And those at the field level, that's more of kind of and that's where, again, looking at the keywords as an aggregate can be helpful because you can identify patterns. If you see the same pattern of like, gosh, none of the brands are coming back with items, as an obvious example, right? It might be because that brand field just isn't turned on to be queried. But with that being said, sometimes there's just everything does look good except for maybe one particular keyword in which a boost or bury rule might help to boost items up or bury other stuff down. I love Do It Best's example with a global bury rule on accessories, right? That's a great way to, when they're searching an item, you're getting the main items up at the top. Accessories still come back in that keyword search, but they're just lower down in the search results. And then synonyms is another common strategy to help tune to make sure the right items are coming back based on keyword searches. Also, don't be afraid to change or adjust content. Do It Best talked about that too, that item wasn't coming back based on what they knew users were searching on with the word float. They added that keyword into the item name itself to make sure that that helped come back correctly or as expected. Do you need more attributes in your data? Again, typically that would be if there's something that doesn't look right in multiple keywords, situations. Making sure that the right attributes in the data feeds that are being passed to Hawk are in place and set up appropriately. And with that being said, one thing that I'm seeing more and more of, I've had a couple clients recently, and Do It Best mentioned this also, is more and more clients are adding a attribute for keyword, and Do It Best, I think you called it a tag, right? But kind of putting in some of almost like a keyword stuffing. It's not used anywhere on the site, it's not displayed, but it's a field with those other keywords that users would use for a particular item, and you can make that queryable. Another action item that's just outside of Hawksearch, but would be to highlight those extremely common search strings on your homepage or in your navigation, right? If you know everybody's looking for item ABC, feature that on your homepage, right? Don't make them search for it or look for it. Put it right there in a banner ad or some call out on your homepage. And then the last item here, I know that the search tuning exercise is a lot of work and takes time. I would say start by just taking the top 10 search terms, right? Every little bit you do is going to make a big difference. So start small, make it an achievable goal, take those 10, look at the results and what comes back, and make any adjustments as needed.
So the next report that we're going to take a look at is our top 250 facets. So the keyword report was telling you what your users were actually searching on. The top 250 facets are telling you what they're navigating to. You can see in this screenshot here, we've actually scrolled a little bit further down because, as Lance mentioned earlier, the kind of configuration is going to be mostly the same across all of these different reports. So we've scrolled a little bit further down so you can get more of an insight into what that report is telling us. Here you can see that we've got our facet value. So this is the actual value that the visitor to your site selected. The facet name is kind of the parent of that. So you can see in our top example there, we have the department name we have the facet name of department. The value that was selected was footwear. The next two columns count, that's the number of times that it was selected, and then we've also added an item count field, or an item click count field, which tells you if there's any items that were selected after that facet navigation. This is included for a couple of different reasons. One, you can then see where there are use cases where someone navigated to a facet, and then they're not actually making any item selections, telling you that that facet isn't necessarily communicating or resolving to the data that your visitors are looking for, and also vice versa. There are facets that everyone's using and then really driving in that traffic from item click counts. I'm going to go to the next slide.
Oh, yep.
So again, what can you do with this report? Really, it's helping you understand, did your searchers refine your results? Are they doing their searches and then just picking from the search results as they came back in? If so, that's great. The search is doing its job, or they're providing enough keywords in that search query to help refine that search without needing to navigate using the left-hand navigation? If so, then, if they didn't, what did they actually use to refine that search? Those things that then maybe you need to address by adding additional options. Maybe you've got too broad of a list in your faceted values. Does it need to be more narrow? And then obviously that gets into what values were within those facets that were selected. So it kind of guides you down that process. Did they use the faceted navigation? If they did, what did they select? And is that obviously then using the item and the click count, helping refine their search experience? Action items. So there's a lot that you can do with our facets. For those of you who have taken a look in the configuration options, you could obviously drag and drop the placement. So if you're looking at that facet report and you're saying, hey, I really thought price would be our most commonly interacted with value for whatever reason, probably because it most likely is one of your most commonly interacted with facets. But it's further down. You're not seeing it as high in the report as you might expect. Well, that could be a matter of placement. You can change the order of the facets through that little blue arrow there. You'll notice that we've got our usual edit icons, then a number, and then there's a little blue up and down arrow. That allows you to actually drag and drop the placement of the facet in the order that it's going to appear in the left-hand navigation. So in this use case, if I wanted to bring color, which is currently in the 6th spot, up to above department, maybe we were really focused on color for whatever reason, I can drag and drop that facet, move that to be above department very simply, and then I can also then look at the reporting to see, well, does this change the interaction of how people are interacting with our facets? The configuration of facet values. So do we want to have what are the order that those facets are showing up in, the sort order that we have there? You can see over there on the right-hand side, the right image, we have our sorting types. Alphabetical A to Z, alphabetical Z to A, count descending, custom sorts. So if you do have your own internal needs for the order that your facets should be displayed in, the values within those, you can pass that information along. And there's also the ability to boost and bury individual values in your facets as well. So maybe you don't need a fully customized order in your facet values. But to continue off the example of color, maybe you wanted red to be the very first option that would be returned. Well, instead of having to pass along a custom value or to worry about anything like that, there's a boost and bury option in the faceting menu, in the faceting configuration in Hawksearch to say, I want to boost the value red in my facet navigation. Then when someone is looking at the color selection, red would be at the very top. You can also bury values. So if you didn't want something to be near the top or in alphabetical order, or if it was a vendor or manufacturer that you don't have a good relationship or with whatever, you can bury them down so that they show up at the bottom. You also want to handle the coverage within facets. So one of the other options that's available is that our facets can also be set to, you can drive when they show up. So by default, most of the search experiences will be if the results returned that attribute, it would show up as a left-hand navigation option if it's been configured to be a facet. But you can set up different values in terms of when that should be visible. Apt actually talked about it at the very first part in this morning when they were talking about how based on what category you were selecting into was then when the other options for their left-hand navigation would display. Initially, though, it was only bringing back in category, brand, and was it in stock, yes or no. Once you then made a category selection, it was then pulling back in all of the other relevant category-dependent facets for that. That's one way to approach it. The coverage verbiage there is actually specifically speaking to a more recent feature that we've added where you can set the percentage of results that need to be returned. So again, continuing the color example, let's say that I do a search for a shirt. And maybe not everything has a color associated with that. And out of the hundreds of items that get returned, only, let's say, 20 of them have a color attribute associated with them. Well, we might necessarily not want color to be returned because it's only accounting for 20 items out of those 100 results. Might be too many facets being returned at that point. You can leverage the percentage of coverage to say, well, we want color to be visible, but only after a certain percentage are returned, or a certain percentage of the results meet that coverage. Meaning we would need to navigate and refine further until more than half, let's say, of the results had that facet included with it.
Searches with poor results. Lisa mentioned that this is one of her favorite reports. I always call this out to clients too during the implementation when we go through training, that this is one of the more interesting reports because, again, this shows you the intent. People are searching for these keywords, but those keywords aren't bringing back results on your site. And there might be different reasons, right? Again, if you look here, I changed the date range to last year. And you can see the top keywords that people were searching for on this site. And again, one other thing I want to call out, the number of results. I set it to 0. That drop-down menu has some other values. You can change those as well. It's going to expand the results, or the keywords that come back here. So again, something you might want to play with too, but I do recommend looking at this report. It gives you insight again into what people are looking for. So this report came from a site that has jewelry. So we know, right, and we always say that the search tuning is more of an art form than a science, right? It's a combination of knowing what you sell, your products, and knowing the intent of what they're trying to find. So again, you can see the keywords and then the counts. Tiffany, warranty, right, are some of these top keywords that didn't bring back any results. So action items from this report. Oh, those keywords are also like the other reports. These are clickable, so you can click on it. In this example, we know what we're going to get. We're going to get 0 results. But it's worth looking at too if you've got filtered to 1 or 2 items. Yes? Oh, I see what you're saying. There currently is not, but that is good feedback.
Real quick, I just want to repeat the question for everyone in the room that might not have heard it. The question was, and let me know if I'm summarizing this correctly here. The question was, is there a way for us to filter the poor results report so that it's not just showing you here was a search that was executed at one point in time that brought back in 0 results or less than 5 results, but to set another threshold that says this report, these are searches that were executed multiple times that pulled back in poor results.
Yeah, almost filtering by the count, right? Yeah. Yeah, no, there isn't right now, but that's good feedback. We'll take that to the product team and add something in there.
And actually, to really quickly add on that, just to highlight that kind of feedback that we get from our users here, we definitely take that to heart. That ability that Lance was mentioning earlier about how you can click through that report, click on the link in the report and go to the preview, that was feedback that we received from one of our other users who was like, this doesn't make any sense why I have a report open in one tab and the preview window open in another tab and I'm having to jump back and forth. Why isn't it just a link? And we're like, that makes a lot of sense. Let's go ahead and integrate that. So that kind of feedback is great. We always appreciate that.
Action items from data in this report. In that example with Tiffany, right, I would say probably a good example would be that would be a good use case for a synonym. That if we know someone's looking for Tiffany, and this is a jewelry site, they're probably trying to find and look for a solitaire ring, which they do carry, right? So if you created a synonym that Tiffany is synonymous with solitaire, that way rather than getting no results for Tiffany, they'll see rings that come back that match that keyword search. I would also recommend, you probably know this, but we've got 3 different environments. We have a dev environment, test, and a production environment. With stuff like this, we recommend doing it in dev or test first just to play around with it because, right, the worst case scenario would be creating a synonym that has some unintended consequences. You don't want to do that directly in production. Yes?
Is there a good way to farm your search data to then come up with synonyms? And I'm lacking the creativity to come up with how you would do that, but it seems like synonyms could be almost an endless, it obviously is an endless endeavor, right, to create the synonyms that link your customers to the appropriate products. But is there an easy way you found to do an initial farming of what users are inputting besides obviously searches with 0 result? Is there any other places I should be looking for potential synonyms?
Yeah, a lot of this is going to come out of the search tuning exercise. Unfortunately, there's no easy way around it. It's a matter of looking at your top keywords and putting them in the search and seeing what comes back in the results. And if it's not what you're expecting, and again, looking at it as an aggregate, not just looking at one keyword search and going, this isn't right. There's nothing wrong with that. That's good, and that's the right thing. But again, as a whole, you want to look at it as a whole with all those keywords. And from there, that's going to give us insight as to what might need to be tweaked or tuned on the engine.
So not AI just yet.
Not just
It's
yet.
actually funny that you bring that up because we've definitely been looking at that is there a way that we can automate some of this? We're getting all of this data in. Is there something that we can look at and say, what can we do to make your guys' lives easier? That's obviously one of our main goals. But what we've found in doing our own internal research on it is that that kind of automation leads to a lot more false positives than you would anticipate. And then what that does in the back end is that makes you then either have poorly performing results that you're not anticipating because the machine learning has now...
Can't explain.
Yes, exactly. And then, or it leads to the point of you having to do a lot of management of, is this something that I actually wanted to put in place? Is this something, no, yes, and going back through it. So it's not quite there yet, but you're definitely not, you're on the right path.
Even taking a step out to where I'm viewing a report, then copy and pasting these into then the synonym area, is there an easy way to, from the report, being able to create a synonym off of that, like via a click as opposed to a copy and paste?
Yes.
Just an idea.
The short answer is yes. So I don't have a screenshot of it up here, but yes, in the Hawk preview, there is again, if you were to go from that report and click on a keyword, right, from the report, go into the Hawk preview with that keyword in the lower right-hand corner, there is it the gear icon?
It's a gear icon.
That you can click on, and there's options that pop up to create, go straight to synonyms. And
there's also the ability to do bulk uploads of synonyms as well. So that still requires one copy and paste, but it's it's one that you can then upload and have it created.
This is the infamous gear.
Oh yes,
Right.
no, we love that gear.
That's an arrow.
I don't have redirects up here, but redirects are another action items that you might come out of here. In that previous report, we saw warranty come up. A lot of clients just send us product data, but your website also has content on there too, right? And in that example, if users are trying to find what's the warranty that they have, they're right now getting the search results with, they're getting the search results page with 0 results, which could make somebody think that you don't have a warranty. So if you see something like that, right, there's a use case where you might go, I need to create a redirect because I do have a warranty page, and create that redirect. So if somebody searches for warranty or something that contains warranty, you redirect them to your warranty page. Is there a field that's queryable is there a field that should be queryable that currently is not? I touched on that earlier. And then also sometimes, that's a good example too, where again, that if you might have that data, we have clients call us sometimes and say, I know I've got this in my data, but it's not bringing back any results. Usually that's the culprit. If the data is already in there and being passed to us, that field just isn't turned on to be queried. And then lastly, is there an opportunity for new merchandise? If there's something that you see users are searching for and you don't have something comparable, there might be a new merchandising opportunity.
Excellent. So the next report that we're going to look at is the conversion tracking summary list. So now this is one of those reports that Lance mentioned earlier can be blank. If you go into your Workbench right now and there's nothing there, that's most likely a point where we need to have that conversation around making sure that the right code is placed in your site so we can track that. From there, though, when it is set up and you're able to look at this report, this is the information that you're going to be able to see from it. Obviously, you can confirm the date, control the date range like we've talked about a couple of different times. You're going to see your keyword list on the left-hand side there showing you the terms that were searched on, then the count showing you the number of times that those searches were executed, followed by the number of orders, followed by the total dollar amount from that keyword search, the average order amount that we're seeing there, so taking an average of all of the orders that we've received or tracked, and then obviously the conversion percentage. So now, a great use case in this example here would be obviously looking at that top example. Kitchen Cabinets Essex Series was searched 3 times, led to 2 orders, but that order total was $8,262. So that was quite the good order value coming off of that one search term. And it was only searched 3 times. So does that mean that maybe we have the right products there? Do we maybe want to add some additional merchandising to that, show a different banner that might be relevant there, make sure that we've got the right products, the products that we have a better margin on front and center there. And for our customers who aren't in an e-commerce space, I want to make sure I'm taking a second to also highlight that this conversion tracking doesn't need to just be tied to conversions in terms of sales. This can also be a click-through, whatever your metric of engagement might be, this can be configured for that as well.
Yeah, and this is one of these reports. Like I said, this report requires a Hawk pixel to go on your thank you page. If it's not there, this would be one of these reports that's empty without any data. So it's important to make sure that that tracking code's in place. Yes?
I was just wondering if this report is able to be exported, because I don't see the option.
I believe that's just cut off in the screenshot. It
Yeah.
should be exportable.
Yeah.
All of the reports should be exportable. Good question, though. So again, we just kind of went over that. What does this list of items give you, or what does that report tell you? It's telling you what keywords are converting, telling you the number of orders, total dollar amount. Basically, this is what the report is going to be confirming for you. So then what we wanted to talk about, there's going to be some new reports, actually some reports that just launched, I believe, last week with our latest product release. We've got a redirects report, actually so new that we didn't have time to get screenshots in our report here, our presentation. The redirects report, so we've had redirects in the tool, I think, since day one, but we've never given you a way to see, well, are they being used? What we have in the tool now is a report that will show you what the redirect is, when it's firing, and how often that's firing. So you can get some insight into, I've set up this redirect for glass jar. Does that mean that it's taking me to the right product page that I'm expecting? Are our visitors actually searching on that term? Is it firing the way that I anticipate?
Yep.
We've also got spelling suggestions. So again, we've had a spelling suggestion report in the tool. It was very basic. It basically would just tell you how many times we made a spelling suggestion and wouldn't give you any additional information that was useful, such as what were the spelling suggestions that were being made. We've since corrected that. This report now will tell you the keyword that the visitor entered, what we suggested, and then if there was any other secondary suggestions. So if there's multiple keywords that could have matched what the user selected. I believe it also shows you if the term was used, if the user actually clicked through it and followed that through. Finally, we are adding in reporting now for landing pages. So the landing pages initially we're going to be just kind of matching feature for feature what we have the reports available for the search side. But initially, the first report that's rolled out now is the top 250 facets that are on your landing pages. This way you can understand that, well, while you have these landing pages built out within Hawksearch, and you can set up either the normal facets that would be returned as if they were from search, or you can override that and pick your own custom facets. We're going to be able to let you then understand, are your visitors actually interacting with those facets, and what facets are they using on these landing pages?
And then this slide is just kind of a recap about some of the recommended, action items that you can take based on viewing the reporting data. And just quickly kind of go through some of this. With querying fields, you want to make sure you're not querying fields with any duplicate data. Long descriptions, we found that typically has a negative impact on relevancy. You don't want to, usually you don't want to query a long description field. Also, sometimes querying too many fields can actually have a negative impact as well. Field level boost, you can create a boost on a specific field. So, right, the most common one we see is usually with an item name or title. You might put a small boost. And again, anytime you do a boost too, I'd recommend just doing do it in small increments rather than going all the way to the right. Usually just a little bit does make enough of a difference to boost it. But by putting it on the field level, right, that's going to impact any query that somebody does on your site. Synonyms, right, I mean, we've talked a lot about this, but sometimes too there's just industry jargon that might not be used by your customers, or maybe they use some slang terms that you've got like a proper name on your site. Sometimes too there's I've seen some use cases where clients have too many synonyms trying to account for everything, in which case, like I said, that's where I'm seeing a trend now where more clients are starting to send a keyword attribute in their data feeds to kind of account for that. And then sorting, we get a lot of requests about landing pages, of wanting to put the most popular items at the top on a landing page. Highly recommend that as well. That kind of comes back to the feeds and making sure that that's just indicated and being passed to Hawksearch. And then our learning search multiplier, we do turn that on for every engine we set up. So that's on out of the box. That's also just going to help boost those popular items in the result sets as well.
So we're going to cover some quick roadmap items, but this is actually going to be covered in the very next reports, the next presentation, I should say. Shreyas is going to be coming up after us and going on a deeper dive on all of the roadmap items. So in the interest of time, since I believe we've only got a handful of minutes left here, let's go ahead and move through these reports, these slides here. Obviously, you guys are also getting copies of this, so you can take a look at that then and understand what we're talking about. Just high level, here's some of the things that are going to be coming through. Go ahead and move through here.
Oh, I get it. Okay.
Yep. So we've talked a number of different things as we've gone through this. We've talked on a handful of the reports. We talked over some of the kind of action items that you can take away from it. And also we've talked about how you can integrate with Google Analytics. We've got that report coming out that's going to hopefully be a guide for some of our marketers and merchandisers in Q2. But in the meantime, while you guys are getting set up, or if you just don't have the resources available, we do want to make sure that you guys are aware that we do have our strategic services available as well. They can help you review and analyze your Google Analytics reports, as well as obviously the reporting within Hawksearch. We can be tied into your Google Analytics as well, so that there doesn't need to be a kind of a screen share portion to it. By adding that email address, analytics01@hawksearch.com, we can have that access. Obviously, you need to add that in your Google Analytics backend, but that can give us insight into your Google Analytics information, which then also we can provide search engine tuning as part of that strategy services. So wanted to touch on that, make sure that you guys were aware of that functionality, make sure you're aware of that service that's available, since we're going to be talking, Shreyas is going to be going more in-depth on the roadmap in the next presentation.
Any questions?
We
All
answered
right.
everything.
Well, thanks everybody. Hope you're inspired by this to take action and review those reports. Thank you.
guys.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, John and Lance. We're going to take about a 10-minute break. Again, if you have the opportunity to fill out the surveys at the end, we'd appreciate it. We have one more session, the roadmap. Then we'll be collecting the surveys for your chance to win a gift card to Portillo's, and then on to the happy hour.